to call the meeting to order, and we'll do that with another pledge to the flag. 2 pledges in a night is twice as good as one. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This is the meeting of the Morrison County Board of Adjustment. The board is made up of citizens from the 5 commissioner districts in the county. The purpose of this board is to review applications for property owners for relief from the strictest interpretation of the county ordinances. Our guidelines are established in state statutes, chapter 394.27, subsection 7. The decision made by this board is the result of whether or not a practical difficulty has been determined. If the board determines there is a practical difficulty, then we review the guidelines in the form of 6 criteria questions that are answered at the end of the applicant's request. A final decision is then made. Each request is evaluated on its own unique practical difficulty. Variances are granted to the land, not to the landowner. The board may, in addition, impose conditions in the granting of variances to ensure compliance. After your public hearing is complete, you may leave if you wish. We have 3 items on the agenda tonight. The first one is James and Linda Dahlheimer. You can proceed forward and take a seat and pull a microphone up to you. 33875 East Shamana Drive, Motley. Application for a variance to construct a home addition within the setback of a bluff located in Scandia Valley Township. Applicants, please state your name for the record.
Linda Dahlheimer.
James Dahlheimer.
Thank you. And Amy, you're ready?
I am, Mr. Chair. Again, this is a variance request to expand a structure within the bluff located in section 15 of Scandia Valley Township. The ordinance reference for this request is additional structure setbacks. 30-foot setback from the top of a bluff is required. And then also bluff impact zones. Here's a plat map of Scandia Valley Township, and the red dot is the location of the parcel. And then here is the variance request received from the applicant. And then a site drawing also provided by the applicant. And then here's an aerial photograph of the parcel outlined in blue. And then also some oblique imagery of the parcel. And then here is a shot of the parcel from the water. And then here are some site photographs taken at the viewing. So this property is on Shamana Lake. It is a conforming single lot, which means it's at least 30,000 square feet and 120 feet wide. The property is 220 feet wide and 40,954 square feet. The applicant purchased the property in 2020. Currently, the property currently on the property is a 1,150 square foot dwelling built in 1992. The house and deck are within the Bluff and Bluff impact zone. Bluff standards and setbacks were adopted in 1991. A review of the permitting history shows the following. That a permit for the home was applied for on May 5th, 1992. Then here is a copy of that permit. And then a stop work order was served on the property on May 11th, 1992 for beginning construction prior to issuance of a permit. A land use permit was granted on May 11th, 1992 to construct the home and deck. It appears the Planning and Zoning Office acknowledged the structure and deck did not meet setback from the bluff, but granted the permit anyway. And then here are those permits and site drawings. The applicant is proposing to construct an addition onto the east or the road side of the home. The addition would consist of an attached 667 square foot garage and a 650 square foot parent/grandparent living quarters for a total of 1,317 square feet. About 485 square feet of the addition would be within the Bluff impact zone. The remainder of the addition would meet setback from the Bluff. The surveyor identified the compliant building envelope on the property. And then here is this figure showing it is outlined in pink. The impervious surface calc with the additions is 15.3%. 25% impervious surface is allowed. The applicants attended 2 development review team meetings. Staff discussed the following with the applicant. The original plan proposed expansion of the structure to the north and south. Staff advised the applicant that this would not be a reasonable application and consideration of building on the east side of the home should be explored. The personal need for living quarters for parents and attached garage versus difficulty of the property to expand. Utilizing the building envelope as much as possible. The large building envelope on the property and why not have a detached garage with living quarter. Allowable living quarter, and the reason is the allowable living quarter was not large enough for handicap accessibility. And the lot is too small for a guest cottage. The applicable comprehensive land use plan goals is natural resources and open spaces, goal C2. Shoreland development, goal D1. The applicable Morrison County comprehensive water plan goals and objectives is the surface water goal, objective B. Land use and development goal, objectives B and D. 79 notices were sent for this request. No correspondence was received prior to the public hearing. And then here you're finding of fact and decision questions, Mr. Chair.
Oh, that's me. Thank you, Amy. Off in dreamland. Does the applicants have anything to add at this point? Anything to clarify what the staff report has presented?
Just a reminder that we moved here last June. We've been here a year and we didn't know about these restrictions. Plan was to get here close to the kids and grandkids, and the plan was also to get my parents who would need care to live with us, and we were going to build onto it. So we did those initial layouts on the north and south side of it, and went to the meeting and found out about all this that we weren't aware of. So we've done several layouts to have the minimal impact to the, don't care about the view or anything. I just want my parents here, and we want a garage, and there isn't space to build a separate building because you can only have, well, there isn't room for a guest cottage, and you can't have a second living quarter. So we feel like we've explored every option, and this is like the best layout to minimal impact. So, what do you think?
No, that sounds good. Okay, could you explain to us the layout of the present, your home presently? Is there 2 stories? Is there a basement?
There's an unfinished basement.
Unfinished
Yeah.
basement? Is that a full basement, 8-foot ceilings?
Yeah, it's a full basement. Yeah.
Okay. no living quarters down there, no,
It's
there's plumbing
storage.
down there, there's,
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
yeah.
What do you have on the main floor then? What,
Right now, it's 2 bedrooms, and then living area and a kitchen, 1 bathroom.
okay,
It's 1,100 square feet on the main level.
so you have another 1,100 square feet in the lower level?
We have a lower level, yep.
Okay. Why not furnish that to be living quarters?
Well, they can't. We need handicap accessibility, so everything we want to be on 1 level. And I have bad knees myself, so I can't be doing that either. Bought this place because it is, the layout is a, what do you call it, 1 story? There's no, I don't have,
Split.
It's not a
It's
split.
one story.
so
Okay,
I can't go down there, they can't go down there.
all right,
So that's really the reason.
okay. Thanks for
Mhm,
that
yeah.
clarification. Does anybody else have questions for the applicants?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Clint.
how many feet again was that between the house, and,
And the,
well, not between, sorry.
It's-
How much more, is that 8 feet or 10 feet of that bluff impact zone that we'd be
It's like
covering?
9 feet.
9 feet, yeah.
it's 485 square feet of the proposed, between the garage and the addition is 1,200 square feet. 485, or a third of that, is in that.
Okay. Yep, I see it now.
Yeah. The rest of it clears it.
Okay. And then, we were out,
Oh, yeah, yep. Good point, Mr. Catherine. We were out for a viewing on 11/12/21 last Friday. Myself, Marv, Dave, and Clint were there. Brent, did you view the property?
I didn't get there on Friday, but I was there yesterday in the evening, about 5 o'clock.
Okay.
4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, somewhere around there, just at dusk.
okay, and then.
Thanks. Just so the record could show that we were there.
And then when we were out at that site visit, we talked and looked around the yard, and we talked a little bit about, on the south side of the house, where you're kind of parking your cars now, we kind of talked maybe turning that into a grassy area.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, because
That'd still be an
originally,
option for you.
yeah, no, that totally makes sense. We thought originally that was going to be where the garage is, but yeah, no, it would look good to make it.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else have anything to add, any questions to ask?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Marv.
You recently purchased this here about a year ago. When you had purchased this here, did you have the intent to put an addition on at that time? It kind of concerns me, and this has came up a few times, that we've had numerous individuals that have purchased property and not having the research, the foresight, and that, hey, you can't do this. Can you explain why that didn't happen?
It didn't even cross my mind, to be honest with you. We lived in the cities and suburbs, and I didn't even think to ask.
Well,
I didn't.
we drew up the plan, and when we brought it to the city, they said, no, you're gonna have problems with
To that DRT meeting,
to
yeah.
doing, the way got it laid out here. It's in the impact zone, this, that, and the other thing. That's the first we heard about the impact zone and this, that, and the other thing. And then we had to come up with the other plan to put it on the east
Well,
side.
first we got the surveyor out then, because then we're like, well, what else don't we know here? So we got that done, and then.
Paid for a survey, had it surveyed.
So the realtor didn't do a very good job explaining to you that there were some issues if you were to do that.
No,
But ultimately, it lays in your hands over this.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, Marv?
Not at this moment.
Okay. How about you, Dave?
No, I don't have any questions. I was just reading through some of the conditions or how we're supposed to answer these questions, and it's a tough one. I'm going to listen to maybe some other arguments here. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. And how about you, Brent?
Maybe this question is more geared towards Amy, but This lot is a conforming lot, but there is not a sufficient area for there to be a guest cottage. Did I hear that correct?
Eh,
Yes, Mr. Chair, that is, can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Okay.
you're hearing Brent okay?
Yes, that is, yes,
Okay.
that is correct. In order to have a guest cottage, you must have a duplex lot size, which is 50,000 square feet and 150 feet wide at the water. And then on a lot that size, you can have a guest cottage, and it is limited to 700 square feet and 15 feet in height, and would also need to meet all setbacks. So the lot size is not large enough for a separate standalone guest cottage.
Okay, anything else, Brent?
So I'm trying to understand this 9 feet of separation for that impact zone. If any of that was moved out 9 feet and connected to the house by, could it conform in any regard that way? There would still be a limited, like a walkway into the home, but moving everything back? Or does that actually, I noticed the
That
sewer was out
Yeah,
there.
that impacts my sewer and septic.
Okay, this is kind of going on top of that already.
Well, it's
Correct.
within the 10 feet minimum right now.
We clear it just by,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, it
why
just
that had to
clears.
be worked, the way it's worked.
So moving the garage and that addition 9 feet out would actually put you on top of the first tank
Yes,
to the septic system before the drain field?
correct.
Okay. All right. I don't have anything else.
Okay. Piggybacking on Brent's question, you would have room for a standalone garage that would meet all setbacks? It's just a garage?
Possibly, yeah, possibly. I believe so, because the neighbor's got one right there, pretty much, right?
Yep. And with, you've got a large building envelope. I'm not sure how it would affect the sewer, but at the same time, you're asking to pretty much double the square footage of the building that you've got,
Well,
the surface square footage of the building.
well, the surface, yes, but not the living space by any
No,
means.
no. And that's a good point, living space. You seem to have a fair bit of unused living space that is not developed and could be into livable space, the basement. Again, handicap accessible, I guess there are ways to access it, but I know not the ideal. You'd be going from 1,155 feet to adding a 1,317 square foot addition. When a garage is attached, that's just like living space. And could be converted to living space later. And another garage added. It just compounds the injury of adding on to a nonconformity.
We did check with, I know Amy and I went back and forth in questions. We looked at a separate garage and living space, but based on the space there, we could only have 110 square feet of living space within the garage. So that's, a 10 by 10 room, so that's not living space.
Yeah.
So anyway, we did explore that, but
Now, you're proposing that this additional living space for your parents,
Yeah.
would it have a separate entrance of its own, or would it be through the
we'd
same
have it
entrance?
handicap access through the garage. They go through the garage. We'd have a ramp. So we had to make sure everything, the bathroom, the hallway, their bedroom, around both sides beds, because they both walkers and wheelchairs, so it has to have that 5 feet
Yeah.
circle around everything. So that's the minimum amount of space, 650 square feet, that could make it handicap accessible.
Question for you, Amy. When does a residence become a duplex, and how is that fit in Shoreland?
So, and I can actually, I'm gonna task Sharon with looking up the definition of a duplex as I'm talking. But generally, a duplex is really another living quarter that shares a common wall with another and affords a separate set of everything. So essentially, it would have its own entrance, it would have its own restroom, kitchen, all the typical living spaces. And what makes it a duplex is it shares a common wall. As far as for if they're allowed in Shoreland, I would, you'll need to give me time to bop back over to my ordinance to take a look at what the performance standards are for duplexes, and I'm happy to do that. Sharon, were you able to pull up the definition of duplex?
Yes, I was.
Can you go ahead and read that, please?
Sure. A duplex is a dwelling structure on a single lot having 2 units being attached by common walls and each unit equipped with separate sleeping, cooking, eating, living, and sanitation facilities.
All right, so Mr. Chair, that's the definition of a duplex. I'm not thinking that all of those items are present in this. Is that correct? That'd be a question for the applicant.
Perhaps the applicant could ask that, answer
Correct.
that.
Correct. You mean as far as like having a kitchen
no
and all that?
kitchen.
There's no kitchen. It's a bedroom, little living area, and a bathroom.
Okay, thank you. All right, any more questions for the applicant or for Amy before we open up to the public? Okay, then we'll open up for public input at this time, for or against. Is there anybody in the vast public that we have here tonight that would like to give some input into this application? I'll ask 3 times, then I'll close for public input. Anybody out there that has input? Anybody with input? Final time, anybody with input? If not, we'll close the public input portion of the meeting and get back to the questions. Ready for the questions, board members? Okay. I got 1 nod, so I'm saying that's an okay. Okay. Is the request in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the Morrison County Land Use Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan? The applicant has answered these questions in their application, and I guess I'm starting this one. I haven't started for a while, so I'm going to start. And it's in here somewhere. Sorry for all the page turning. I will find their input.
What are you looking for?
I'm looking for this page, right here. Yes. Okay, the applicant answered this question by stating that the expansion meets the setback from the lake, except for 485 feet or within 485 square feet or within the Bluff impact zone. They also said in order to meet to have the least amount of building, you place it on the roadside of the house. Slope elevation goes from the bluff towards the road, so the water should run naturally away from the lake. The existing septic tank isn't in compliance. I don't know if that means, I mean, we had a letter attached, but was it inspected or was it just sized for compliance, Amy? Or was it, I suppose it was inspected when you bought it?
Yes.
Okay, so that answers that question. You also stated in here 3 big tooth aspen trees will be removed, but there's quite a few more trees than that.
Yeah, I was just
That's in the
wondering what was
impact.
concerned, what was in the bluff.
I see.
And actually, there's only one that's in the bluff.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, but probably 15, 20 trees need to be removed?
No,
I mean, you've got a lot of
there's-
trees there.
yeah,
It's not a big deal, but,
There's 3, 4,
yeah,
probably 8 to 10.
yeah, okay. Okay, just one clarification on that. In answering this question, we didn't address at all that this is a non-conforming structure and that the ordinance discourages us from allowing additions onto non-conforming structures. In fact, even encourages the eventual elimination of non-conforming structures, no matter how impossible that is. But by adding on to them, we perpetuate them, obviously. They stay forever. In this case, you have plenty of room for a detached garage with storage. You have plenty of room for remodeling, in my opinion, to meet your needs. As Marv stated, you purchased the property in 2020, just a year ago, and a property that didn't meet your needs and wasn't properly, vetted to see if it could ever meet your needs. That's not our bad. It's been a single-family residence since it was constructed. Now you're expanding it to more. But those are just points I'd like to make at this time. As far as being in harmony, I think a doubling of a nonconformity is not in harmony with the ordinance, especially when it's within the bluff and entirely within the bluff impact zone for the present structure, and you'd be adding more into the bluff impact zone, another almost 500 square feet. Okay, let's see, Clint?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I believe, as far as the comprehensive plan, I believe it is in harmony. If you look through the applicable comprehensive land use plans and goals, each one of these is a case by case, and looking at the property and how, yes, it's in the bluff, and we're gonna be using another 485 square feet of the bluff. The house is kind of in the wrong spot, but we're gonna use another 485 square feet. If you look at these goals, I can't find any one of these where it is gonna be detrimental. You look at preserve natural resource identified as critical and sensitive, including wildlife, so we got a bluff, okay? And yes, we got measurements, we got rules, we're talking 9 feet. Actually, the way this one is designed, they got a pretty flat top. Where this addition would be, there's lots of slope away from the lake. I don't think there's gonna be anything where it's gonna hurt as far as watershed going to the lake. I don't think it'll hurt any of the surface water. When we look at our goals and in these comprehensive plan, I don't see where it's a negative to any one of these. I know that the rule is we can't be in the bluff, and each one's case by case. I just think this one, it just fits in there a little better than maybe some other ones we saw. Then with the applicants, when we were out at the site visit talking about maybe putting that dirt area into grass, that just that even helps the bluff more. I know we're adding something to the bluff, but in retrospect, we're also going to try and help it a little bit by doing some of that. So I would say it's in harmony.
Okay, Brent?
I would echo some of the thoughts that Clint had just mentioned. Being able to build when the entire home is in the bluff is pretty difficult here. The entire structure itself is within the bluff. I understand, what we're here to do is the Board of Adjustment is to hear this and review it and make some reasonable decisions regarding whether or not this can be approved or not approved. And that in and of itself is in harmony with the purposes of our our board meeting tonight. So I think this is in harmony with the general purposes of the land use ordinance, and that's what we're trying to struggle with. But it's not an easy attempt here when the entire structure itself that you're planning to add on to is in the bluff itself, and now we're going to take up some impact zone area as well in considering this. So it's not an easy decision.
Well, thank you. And Marv?
Mr. Chair, I agree with all the board members have stated it, and I struggle with this here, with you purchasing this and knowingly what you were going to do, and in essence, you are at fault for not knowing this. But what do we do? Where do we go from here? And I guess one thing I appreciate you going back and forth with Land Services. What can we do to make this work? And it sounded like you made numerous changes to make it palatable. Now, I would like to also add some conditions when we get to this point, and these conditions would be having a stormwater plan, diverting the water, making sure it doesn't go toward Shamana, because we heard enough horror stories what has happened, even though it looks like it's diverting away, which is great. So it would probably mean that you'd be guttering it, which you agreed to do. And also, you talked about seeding that area down, was the parking, which would be bringing that, reestablishing that bluff. With them conditions, I think this creates it more so in harmony.
Okay, thank you, Marv. Dave, anything to add to that?
You know, I really appreciate the time that, Dave, you put into your analysis of this situation. And Clint, you know, you too, in looking at it a little different way. And also too, Brent, in looking at our place as a board here to make these decisions. And so I have to say that I think that it is in harmony, and there's basically, in looking at the lot and the way it lays out, the way it drains away from the lake too, you know, is that if we go strictly by the letter of the law, they shouldn't do anything. But if we're going to be here as a board and look at these things and go out and take time and look at the properties and look at the whole situation, if we go by the letter of the law, then there's no purpose for us being here. And I just hope, I don't want to go beyond that, but my opinion is, looking at this property, is that I think it's in harmony with the comprehensive plan. Is that, of course, that it sounds to me, by looking at the permit, the original permit, and then the work order stoppage, it was, and I knew the previous planning and zoning director, and you know, he gave these people a break to continue the work where they were. He let them do it, and then now we're kind of compounding on that, but I can't see a reason to deny their request because of the previous, about what was done. If we're going to go by the letter of law, they shouldn't do it. But we here as a board need to look at these situations. And again, I appreciate Brent's comments too. So, and both Dave and Clint, you've made good arguments both ways, either way. But I would be for it. I think it should. I think it's in with the harmony with the comprehensive plan. I'll get it right. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Okay. Anything else to add to question number one?
Mr. Chair, I
Go
just
ahead,
wanted, just to clarify, I don't know who can help me with this, but I'm trying to determine that dirt parking area on the side of the home that we're talking about, grass, what is the size of that? Does anyone, I didn't measure it when I was there, but I'm curious to know what the size or square footage of that area is.
Was, you don't have the drawing from the previous.
Is that in your impervious surface calculation or
There
not?
was
No,
gonna
because
be
there
a
isn't.
double car
Right.
garage, so it's gotta be close to about
there isn't
the
class
size of the garage.
Like 40 by 40, is that,
No, 25 by
no, the parking area
the
though?
parking
parking area, yeah. There was gonna be a garage there, so I don't really know.
My recollection would be somewhere at 30 by 40, 40 by 40, something like that.
1,200 to 1,600
Yeah.
square feet?
That's what I would, my guess would be, educated guess.
All right, that's close enough for me, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Do we want to, before going on with the next questions, do we want to flesh out those conditions a little bit so that they might help us answer the other questions?
Mr. Chair, I think the rest of you heard what conditions I'd like. I don't know what the rest of the board members feel about them.
Yeah, personally, I would say that if you were to pass this, that those two conditions, but I might add in a shoreline review too. I mean, it looked like from where we're standing, viewing it, that the shoreline looked pretty good, but as long as somebody from Land Services is there, might as well review that too and see if there's any recommendations to help stabilize and continue the stability of that shoreline and that bluff. Because we are encroaching into it quite a ways. So would everybody be okay with that, adding that? So we'd have three conditions:
I think that's,
a shoreline review, a stormwater review, and vegetating that parking area.
yes.
Mr. Chair, I agree with that.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Amy, go ahead.
I think one of the things as you're considering this too, I know you're focusing on stormwater and movement and how that may go down to the bluff or if it will reach the surface water. The other thing that you may want to talk about with the applicant when it comes to bluff is generally it's disturbance of the bluff when it comes to excavating, digging, and the approach to construction. So perhaps you may want to have the applicant talk about what their proposed approach to construction is as far as stabilizing the site, because that is generally the bigger concern when we're in bluffs.
Okay, good point. You heard Amy's question, do you understand it? Okay,
Well, it would be probably crawl space underneath the living space, and the garage would be slab. As far as excavation, there isn't, the only thing that's gonna be excavated is what, that 9 feet that's in that bluff zone. The rest of the excavation could be outside of that.
but it still could affect it, I mean, with any excavation, any removal of stumps, those kinds of things. I assume the stumps would be hauled off the property
Yeah.
and disposed of other places, it wouldn't be buried on the property.
No.
What would you do to protect the bluff during all of that construction?
Well, being
And
it's-
neighbors' properties also, possibly.
Well, we'd probably have to put up a silt fence, I suppose.
Okay, I think
So
that's,
that they're restricted without being a property fence. If we put up a silt fence so that they have to stay within that boundary.
a silt fence. So, okay, would that be something you'd be okay with conditioning?
Sure.
Okay.
Mr.
Clint,
Chair?
Go ahead.
Just kind of clarify a little bit too, Amy, you weren't at the viewing, so you wouldn't have saw the property. I like the idea of a silt fence, but where this particular addition would be going on, there's actually a non-lakeside slope to it. So I don't think during construction that there would be any runoff heading towards the lake, as long as they kept it minimal. I think the reason I like the silt fence is it does slope maybe towards your neighbors more than it does the lake. So I'm on board with the silt fence, but
agree with that.
just wanted to clarify a little bit. Amy's point and what she brought up was duly noted, But on this particular one, looking at the site, I don't think we'd have any problems with any erosion or any silt or water running towards the lake. Everybody on the board agree with that, kind of from what we saw?
Yeah, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Brent.
You know, if we look at attachment A, I was looking at those elevations with that dirt parking area, and it looks like, you know, the bluff is at 1307 of the backside of the house, where this is proposed is 1306, and then 543. It slopes down about a foot every 40 or 50 feet towards the road.
Yep, good observation. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Amy.
I think more what I was getting at is if you look at attachment A and you look at the addition that would be placed on that, and you look where the bluff is, where the bluff impact zone is, and then I'm just going to go to a different slide where you look at that red area. We all know under the forces of construction that equipment is going to swing around on the lake side and is going to be working at the top of that bluff, and there will be equipment in the bluff. That's what I'm getting at.
There's trees.
Is
Okay,
that there
good
should-
point.
That there will be, I don't know if can you see my pointer on the screen?
Yes.
You're gonna have equipment here and here. So that's, and generally when you're reviewing work within a bluff like this, you certainly are paying attention to the approach to construction, because we know that there will be more impact around during the forces of construction, and that's what I was getting at. So just, since you were talking about looking at conditions that would mitigate any issue with working in the bluff, that's why I bring it up. Mr. Chair, take it or leave it.
Okay, thank you for those observations. Back to the applicant, how would you respond to that now that we've clarified that a bit? Okay,
I
we're
would
concerned about the neighbors, but we're not really concerned about the roadside so much. I mean, you've got a pretty big buffer area there, but the lakeside is a concern with equipment.
Right. Well, I'd have to talk to the construction, who's ever gonna be doing the excavation, see what he's gonna need for space, and then put the silt fence from that point on, I guess. And then, there are mature trees that are right there. So as far as equipment coming in there, they're gonna have to work, from this construction side of this.
Amy, could we look at the picture of I think it's the north side of the house? The lake is to the west, correct?
Yes, the lake is to
Okay.
the west.
Yep, keep going. Yep, that side, that would be the north side, and that would be back or forward, or, I'm not sure. You were there. That one. I think that's where we'd be most concerned about equipment going, because the equipment would be in the present parking area.
Yeah,
Like
and
you're
like I
saying
said,
that
with the
there's
trees,
there
I got a
that-
tree right there by my house. My well is right there, so there ain't gonna be no big equipment on that. So they ain't gonna get any closer than like where those timbers are, as far as to the lakeside.
Yeah, and actually that side of the house, it looks like it's a little more level with the top of the bluff. It doesn't slope as fast away from the bluff.
Right, correct,
So there would be concern there
right.
with, okay. All right. I don't know if we need to, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just read about construction in sensitive areas on another subject, but your contractor would it might be a condition that your contractor is responsible for making certain that no damage is done in the impact zone. I mean, that's something that this is not the only place that there's sensitive features where construction's being done. And I think if a contractor keeps that in mind, you know, that they're capable of doing it without, they're responsible for any destruction within the impact zone.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Clint.
I'll just throw this out there just to keep it cleaner and just to be able to move on. I just propose we just put a condition on that there won't be no construction equipment any farther west than the edge of the east house. Looking at this and how they're going to build it, there is no reason that they need to be even with the house or west of the east end of the house. So I would just probably put a condition on that.
Excavators can do an awful lot without having to,
Exactly. This isn't,
Reach over there and
we're
do
not
that.
digging a basement, so I would probably look for putting that on it, just to simplify it.
Mr. Chair?
go ahead, Amy.
So I just wanted to clarify that, Clint. Can you say that again, just so I can write it down?
Yep. Okay, so there wouldn't be no construction equipment west of the east side of the house.
Okay.
You
Thank
understand
you.
that? Okay.
Yes, and the other thing that I just want to point out are these are conditions that you're going to be keeping in mind as you continue to
Exactly.
vote, correct?
Exactly, yes.
Correct. They might impact how we think for or against a particular question.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you for guiding us through that. I guess we're ready for question number 2, correct? All right, we're starting out with Clint on that one. Is the applicant proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by the land use ordinance? Go ahead, Clint.
You know, I believe so. Like I said, we look at case by case. You know, yes, we look at lake shore impact zones, the bluff impact zones. You know, we take them serious. But when you look at this particular one, you know, we look at the shoreline. Granted, they've only been here for a year, right? But, you know, the shoreland on this one, on that bluff, there's lots of vegetation. It's pretty native. It ain't like they're mowing it or cutting it. That's kept up pretty good. Haven't found, Marv's usually a good sniffer for it, but I didn't think we found much erosion around there. So there's lots of vegetation there. So, you know, looking at that and then proposing use in a reasonable manner, I believe so. You know, they've tried a couple different options. Just looking at the property, my personal opinion is, you know, the direction going east of the house makes the most sense for the way that house is already. You know, with their willingness to take where they're parking their cars right now and changing that into lawn, that helps. That actually is going to help firm up part of the. I mean, it isn't going to be quite as much. Actually, they're going to revegetate more square footage of the bluff than what they're going to take away. You know, that 485 square feet. You know, that 485 square feet that you'd be putting a structure on. Now, we're still going to have the same amount of water. I'm not saying that. But when you change it to grass versus dirt, it should be a lot less erosion. And right where that parking is, that's one of the more elevation drops of the whole property. So, and being it's away from the lakeside, that's where I'm going with a reasonable manner. So that's my answer.
Just to clarify that, Clint, you're talking about bluff impact and bluff area versus total construction.
Yeah, I'm just saying we're taking away another 485 feet of the bluff impact zone, but what they would put into grass would more than be the 485 that they're going to eat up.
Even though it's a. over
Exactly.
1,300
I'm not
square
talking about what's there already. I'm just saying what.
feet. Okay, cool, thank you. I guess next would be Dave Brucher.
Kind of lost me there with all the previous explanations, but that they are using that property in a reasonable manner that's not permitted. They are proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes.
Okay. Brent?
I think everybody's covered it well.
Okay. How about you, Marv?
Something else that I wanted to point out as we spent some time out there, as you look in the map there, where that bluff, top of the bluff is near the stairway of the home. Well, when you're there, it's a very slight incline. It's very slight. As majority of the bluffs were, it's quite dramatic. You get towards the lake, it drops off. So with that being said, it makes it a little bit more palatable for us to possibly do this with the conditions.
Okay. And I think that leaves just me, and, I guess I'm still on the negative side of this equation. I'm thinking it's an awfully large expansion for a nonconformity that's located mostly in the bluff, not just the bluff impact zone. And it would be much more reasonable to have a detached garage, and that can be permitted without a variance, and to remodel the house. Again, not exactly what the applicants want, but then again, back to should have purchased what met their needs or could meet their needs. Should have researched better. Otherwise, reasonable to add on to a house, yes, but not this large of an expansion of a nonconformity. Okay. Anybody else want to add to question number 2? Off to number 3, will the issuance of the variance maintain the essential character of the locality? We'll start with you, Dave.
Yes, it will. That house is far enough back in, it's hard to see from the road. It will maintain the essential character of the locality, yes.
Okay, anybody else have anything to add? Marv?
One thing I want to point out, if you look in the neighborhood, the home directly to the south, it's an older home. They're built right in the bluff. Should have never been allowed. I'm not going to say this makes this right, because this permit should have never been given at the time it was. But will you notice any difference? You won't notice it from the lake. You won't notice from the road. It should fit right in there. You won't even notice it.
Okay. Anything to add, Brent?
I would just echo on what Marvin had to say there regarding this being a treed area, both from the lake and from the road. You're not necessarily going to see anything in there.
Okay, the only thing I'd like to add is that, I guess if you look further to the north, it seems to me that quite a number of very conforming properties that are set back properly from the bluff. Nonconformities should not become the essential character of a neighborhood. This one from the lake, I think you can see it, and you'd see it's perched right on top of the bluff. And that very large imposing deck that's right at the cusp of the bluff. Stairway going down that I know there was some discussion about adding landings onto that stairway, and I know those are permittable, but more construction in the bluff. Yeah, so essential character, that's a tough one. What is the essential character of the locality? All right, Clint, have you had a chance? Did you have anything to add?
I'm kind of see both points of this. I'll maybe lean a little bit towards the essential character. I kind of agree with what Mr. Stitch said, is we don't want to make this nonconformities essential character of the area. But with this particular one, the reason I would probably say that it would maintain is what they're proposing to do that isn't there already, you ain't gonna see from the lake or from the road. I mean, maybe a little bit from the road, but so that's maybe, if it was out towards the front, it definitely, I'd be a no way whammo all the way around. But so I would lean a little bit more that it would be, yes, it would maintain the essential character.
Okay, anybody have anything else to add to number 3? On to number 4, is the alleged practical difficulty due to the circumstances unique to the property. We're going to start out with Marv.
Although this one makes finding this practical difficulty. And, you know, first, Land Services created this. But reading something recently stating that they didn't create a practical difficulty, they created a nonconformity. And that's where I really struggle with this one. And I can't say I agree with this one, with that being stated.
Okay. Brent, anything to add?
You know, I'm just looking at my notes here. The practical difficulty could be the oddness shape of the lot, moving things back. I don't have the luxury of knowing if this was a vacant lot when this existing permit went in. Maybe that's a question for Amy. Was it allowed because a sewer and septic was already in place and an old cabin was taken down? Do we know that? Why it was granted where it was?
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Amy.
That is a fantastic question. Within the information that I have from 1992, I don't see any indication that there was a structure there at the time that was being replaced. Unfortunately, I also don't have any insight as to the rationale for allowing it. I don't know if it was because they were already had undergone certain stages of construction. I don't have any insight, and unfortunately I really can't answer the why, as far as why that was continued to be allowed to continue construction.
And I'd just like to add, even with all that said, Amy, there still should have been an after-the-fact variance or just an application for a variance and an opportunity for a public hearing, correct? And why they why that was foregone. That is a good question too, isn't it?
Mr. Chair, what I can tell you is if we had encountered that, where we had an application for a dwelling that we had not field checked and had not granted yet, and got out there and realized that there was construction and it did not meet setback, a stop work order would be issued, and then they'd have to go through the variance process in order for us to construct something back.
Or meet
That's how we
setbacks,
handle that.
or just
Yes,
undo
or
what they had
start
done
over
and meet setbacks,
Yes.
correct? And get permitted?
Correct,
Okay.
yes. That's correct.
All right, I don't know if that answers your question, Brent, or helps.
Yes and no. But in addition to that, you know, I'm looking at the Bluff standards and setbacks being adopted in 1991, looking at practical difficulties. This was a 1992 permitted just the following spring or the following year. I'm not sure what the confusion was, but that in and of itself, now with that structure being where it is, creates somewhat of a practical difficulty in today's world. I'm not sure what the interpretation was or what the granting of it was at the time. We don't know if it was an existing structure taken down and then, you know, new being built to offset something in the shape of the yard or the existing sewer, if there was one. I don't know if there was, but I just don't know what all was in play back in 1991, 92.
Okay. All right, I'd like to add that, you know, there is a large building envelope on the property. There is a way to do at least some of this with an over-the-counter permit, or all of it with an over-the-counter permit. Not just the way they prefer to do it. This is a personal preference as to what they want to do with this property, personal needs versus practical difficulty. The placement of the non-complying structure is just that, a non-complying structure. It's not a practical difficulty. Okay, Clint.
Practical difficulty to me is you got parents that are aging and you want to take care of them. That's a practical difficulty in itself. So you got to add on here for this here to take care of your parents. I would wish that everybody would want to do that for their family members, so they want to do something. You're not going to have a detached house for them. You're going to have some living quarters close, or tied in. There is a big building envelope here, but with that sewer being where it is, and the only way that we can do anything permitted is if it's not attached. To me, that's not feasible when you're looking at the care that they want to provide. Yeah, we could look at it should have never got built where it did. We don't know all the specifics to that. The shape of the lot. You can't use the Bluff for practical difficulty, but it's just where the house was placed. Who knows how that got done, but I think everybody has a right to do some of these things, especially if you want to. I don't know. This is a hard one. I don't know. I sure the heck wouldn't want to build another house 50 feet away. That's for sure. I just think the shape of the lot, the house being where it is, and just with the need to, it's a want, but to me it's a need. I would surely hope that my children would do everything in their power to do something to take care of me when the time comes. So I don't think it's a want. I think it's a need.
Okay. Dave, anything to add to that?
Going back to all 5 questions here, and I think what happened is on the first question, a lot of us had kind of covered a lot of territory on that first question that covered the rest of these. But is that, as we are here as board members, I would think we're expected to use some common sense. And if we look through the letter of the law, and I've read through what I got from planning and zoning email and the county attorney on this, and then you read back through the variances on the back, on the folder we get here. If you go by the letter of the law, there is no practical difficulty. But, we here as board members I think we're expected to use some common sense, and it is that, so we have to answer these questions in a manner that reflects what we think is good. And that dances around whether there's a practical difficulty or not here, but the practical difficulty is that building is there. It was permitted, okay? And that doesn't mean we're going to go on into a in perpetuity where they're going to, because something's non-conforming, we're just going to allow it to keep going. But I think that's what we're here for. We're here for a case-by-case basis. And when I went out and looked at that property and the way it's laid out and the way it drains away, common sense would tell me they should be allowed to do that. So I say, yes, there is a practical difficulty unique to the property. And I hope that answers that in a proper manner, Mr. Chairman.
I think it does.
Mr.
Well
Chair?
said. I'd like to add just a thought that variances, remember, are for the property, not for the applicant. So go ahead, Mark.
That's exactly what I was going to state. It makes it difficult, but that's where we're at in that. And some of them in our past, what we had to rule, it was tough because of that.
We ready for question number 5? Okay, is the need for the variance created by actions other than the landowner or prior landowners? Brent, you can start this fine question.
Okay. Well, obviously, it's created by the prior landowners, building where they built. It's created by the current landowners who wish to do the the building proposal that they've pitched here today. There may be some misinformation or lack of due diligence regarding the purchase of the property by the realtor. Certainly, there's the reason for this variance is created by the actual building permit of 9192. It may be due to the confusion of enacting the Bluff in 91 and then actually applying that several months later in 92 in the spring when the building occurred. Is it created by others? I believe this one you can answer in the affirmative that yes, it is. There's others in here as well as the landowners and prior landowners. There's more to it than that.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, we'll go to myself. I have nothing to add to that. Clint?
The only thing I would add, I agree with what Brent said wholeheartedly here. The need for variance is created by actions other. Yes, I believe what he stated was correct, and there is actions by other. What is the other? Somebody allowed that somehow, some way, that house got built where it wasn't supposed to. So that's actions other.
Okay. Anybody else? Dave?
I have nothing further to add.
Okay, Marv?
I agree with the rest of the board members had stated on that.
Okay. Ready for question number 6. Does the alleged practical difficulty involve more than just economic considerations? Back to me. I don't have an answer for that yet, but, so we'll start with Clint. It's not a fair world, is it?
Yes, I believe it does. Just economics, their need to help their parents, the difficulty, with it, if it was just economics, if they had extra money they would have bought somewhere different. If they're trying to save money, they would definitely build something different than what they're doing. So I think we could take just the money part of it out, but I just think, like we talked before, with the way the land is, how it was created, the creation of this variance by others, we'll just put it that way, by others. I think that's part of it. Involves more than just economics, just the way this particular property lays. I guess my answer would be it's more than just economics because of the others.
Anybody want to add to that?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to add their willingness to go back and forth from planning and zoning, thinking about where would this work, where is the best possible site, their willingness to go along with the conditions we've added is definitely more than economics.
Okay. Anybody else like to add to that? So we're done with the criteria questions. We have some conditions in mind. Amy, could you read those off, please? It'd be better if you did than if I went by my notes.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So I've got 4 conditions. The first one would be that the applicant would coordinate with the shoreline specialist to do a shoreline review. And I'd probably bundle that in to just make this 3 conditions. So they'd have the shoreline specialist do a shoreline review and stormwater review. And then that the applicant would implement any recommendations that the shoreline specialist comes up with. The second one would be that the applicant would vegetate, return the current parking area back to a vegetated state, and that no construction equipment would be allowed west of the easternmost side of the home.
Okay, thank you. Everybody agree with those conditions? Okay. Okay, we'll answer the questions or accordingly. All right. Question number one, we'll start with myself. Is the request in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the Morrison County Land Use Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan? My answer is no. Clint?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Marv?
Yes.
And Brent?
Yes.
Number two, is the applicant proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by the land use ordinance? Start with Clint,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Marv,
Yes.
Brent,
Yes.
myself is no. Number three, will the issuance of variance maintain the essential character of the locality? Starting with Dave,
Yes.
Marv,
Yes.
Brent,
Yes.
myself is no. Clint.
Yes.
Number four, is the alleged practical difficulty due to circumstances unique to the property? We're starting out with Marv,
No.
Brent,
Yes.
myself is no. Clint
Yes.
and Dave.
Yes.
Question number five, is the need for the variance created by actions other than the landowner or prior landowners? Starting out with Brent,
Yes.
myself is no. Clint,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
and Marv.
No.
Okay, number six, does the alleged practical difficulty involve more than just economic considerations? Starting out with me, my answer is yes. Clint,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Marv,
Yes.
and Brent.
Yes.
Okay, all of the questions were answered in the affirmative. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion with the three conditions that we approve this applicant.
Is there a second?
I second that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? Okay, we'll proceed to vote, and we'll go down the line, aye or nay, yes or no, in favor or opposed to the motion. Marv,
Yes.
Brent,
Yes.
myself is no, Clint,
Yes.
and Dave Prucher.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Next step, I guess, is to talk to Land Services.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, who second that motion, please?
Excuse me, I didn't hear that.
Who seconded the motion?
Oh, Dave Brucher.
Okay, thank you.
All right. 8:03 p.m. and 2 items to go yet. The next item on the agenda is Norbert and Darlene Cronin with Steve Cronin, 6466 Azalea Road. Applicant can come forward and take a seat, pull the mic up. 6466 Azalea Road, Motley, application for a variance to add on to a non-conforming structure located in Motley Township. Okay, state your name for the record, please.
Steve Cronin.
Okay, Steve. Amy, your report, please.
Sure, Mr. Chair. This is a variance request to expand a non-conforming structure located in Section 25 of Motley Township. The ordinance references Section 301, 301.6A, 706.1, and shore impact zones under 706.1 and 706.3. Here's a plat map of Motley Township, and the red dot is the location of the parcel. And then here's the variance request received from the applicant. And then here's a site drawing also provided by the applicant. And an aerial photograph of the parcel, and that is outlined in blue. And then an oblique image of the parcel. And then here are some site photographs taken at the viewing. So again, the property is in section 25 of Motley Township on the Lake Placid portion of the Crowing River. This is a non-conforming single lot, which means it's less than 30,000 square feet and 120 feet wide. The property is 60 feet wide and 25,067 square feet. According to the assessor's records, there is a 946 square foot dwelling with an 80 square foot deck built in 1960, which was prior to land use controls. It is approximately 30 feet from the lake within the shore impact zone. And then here is a drawing or a aerial photo with some of the measurements from the deck and the house to the lake. The applicant purchased the property in 1991. The applicant is requesting to place a 504 square foot addition onto the south or the road side of the home. The addition would include a bathroom and enlarged bedroom. The addition would start approximately 80 feet from the lake. No net gain in bedrooms will occur. The current impervious surface calculation is 6.5%. 25% impervious surface is allowed. At the development review team meeting, staff discussed the following with the applicant, and that the parents are moving to the home full time. There's plans for a detached garage, and we told them to check the location of the right-of-way to determine if setback can be met, and that they should utilize the available building envelope on the property for any building. The home is within the shore impact zone and discuss the significance of the shore impact zone. The Board of Adjustment may discuss removal of the deck from the lake side of the home. And the property is within the map floodplain. The proposed map shows buildings will come out of the floodplain and that there is adequate elevation above the base flood elevation for permitting. The applicable comprehensive land use plan goals is natural resources and open spaces, goal C2, shoreline development, goal D1, and then the applicable Morrison County comprehensive water plan goals and objectives is surface water goal, objective B, land use and development goal, objectives B and D. 21 notices were sent. No comment was received prior to the public hearing. And then here are your finding of fact and decision questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Applicant have anything to add to that report?
No, that's pretty well covered.
Okay. Would you mind just clarifying a bit, the history of this property? You're the current owner?
No, my parents own it. I'm their son and also a contractor.
Okay. The application is, and under their name, okay.
Yes, Norbert and Darlene would be
Okay.
the applicants. Yeah.
All right. So you're just representing them here today? Okay.
They bought it in 1991 as a cabin, did some remodeling and stuff over the years, and decided they wanted to move there. And then my dad had a stroke about a year ago, and where they live now has become a problem with his mobility and that kind of stuff, getting around the house. And they would like to move there, but with the bedrooms that are there and one bathroom, and there's this, in that house, if you guys, I don't know if you guys have to go inside or not, but there's different steps and levels that he's having problems with. So trying to level that bedroom and make the bedroom bigger so it's easier to access the bed, and then have a second bath that's handicap accessible too.
Could you, what's currently in the house? What
There's two
what rooms
bedrooms.
are there?
There's two small bedrooms, a small bath, and then it's actually a trailer house down the center, if you've seen that. It's a bedroom on the end, bathroom, kitchen, dining room's kind of bumped off to the side, and the living room on the lake side. And then there's a little bump out on the other side with an entryway and stairs going down to the, you wanna call it a basement, it's more of a mechanical room down below and crawl space. And then on the other side is a one bedroom and dining room.
I mean, from the outside, it seems pretty straight, the structure. And is it because of the siding was really done well and the roof was really done well?
I wish I had pictures of it. I was in high school when we did it, and my dad was a contractor, that's where I got it. We took that thing as a trailer house in the middle, and there's two wings coming off with almost flat roofs off of a small, and put a ridge line on it, and then hand framed it all in to bring it into one ridge line and one roof to bring it together, and then furred out and straighten the walls so it look good now.
So how sound, I mean, it looks like the foundation is sound and
Yeah.
everything is square. Is it just deceiving that you did such a nice cover-up
Well,
job?
I'm hoping that's what the deceiving part is, but yeah, the foundation was the reason that The placement of it, they liked, obviously, and the foundation was in good shape, so that's why you put the time and money into making it look much better and straightening that roof and having a real roof on it instead of a trailer house roof with a couple flat roofs and actually putting a pitched roof on it.
I mean, you're a contractor, you must think this is a wise move to add on to a kind of a unique structure with a trailer house in it. Why
Yeah.
do you think that?
Just because of the location of it, and they kind of fell in love with it over the last 30 years and where it's at, so, and to bring it to a situation where it's more usable for them, or even previous, or a next person that lives there, why not? Just because the layout of that hallway and the bedrooms and the bathroom is a pain in the butt, really.
So besides the addition being more accessible and easy to move through, will you make changes to the rest of the house to improve accessibility there, or don't need to?
Just through that kitchen area, the living room, there's no real reason to change any of that. That sitting room with the fireplace, that I would like to bring the floor up in, but that's something down the road to get rid of that little 2-inch step. But mostly just that hallway, kitchen, bath area.
Okay.
Probably locate the fridge. If you were in there, the refrigerator kind of blocks that hallway and stuff. Is redo the kitchen so that refrigerator's moved to the other side, and then that has a better flow down the center and easier access to the bathroom and bedroom from the living room.
If this variance wasn't granted, what would you do?
I'm
What's
not-
Plan B?
I'm not sure, honestly. Their heart's set on it, doing it, and if they can't do it, I don't know what they're gonna do. I don't know what their plan is. They haven't really come up with one, because they can't really stay where they're at. That place is for sale, but, the bedroom situation and bathroom is just not gonna work with where he's at right now. Well, he's in a better place now than he was 6 months ago, but when this all started, but that can go backwards pretty fast. I don't know what there really is no real other plan at the moment. It's just hoping this passes and they can do it, and then otherwise we just cross that bridge when it comes.
Okay, thank you. I hope I didn't take all the good questions. Does anybody else have a question to direct to the applicant or to Amy?
Say, can I ask you to talk closer to the mic when you
Yep,
talk, just
no
so Amy
problem.
can hear you? Thank you.
Okay, no questions at this time? Go to public input then, or?
Wait, I have one, but.
Okay, go ahead, Clint.
I forgot it. It was something to do with the garage and, I'll go to public input, maybe I'll remember it.
Okay.
I can't remember. It was something, I had it wrote down, now I
Okay.
can't find it.
Well, you see, there is no plan for a garage in here, or is there a plan for a garage if you do
When
this?
When I first came and talked to the county about it, they were hoping to do a garage or thinking about doing a garage, but it was actually where it would have been in the road right away setback. So we took that out of the equation and went to putting,
Could you point out on, Amy, maybe you could find an appropriate slide where you,
yeah, if you
where
show-
you were thinking of a garage and why it didn't meet setbacks, or?
just because of the road setbacks, they were thinking about this is kind of a slope coming down and taking away this secondary driveway, because it's a loop, and putting the garage would actually bump into the road setback here. So you would drive in and around and into the front. So instead, with hoping to get this variance passed, not doing another variance for a garage, is going off that road setback and then actually setting it in here off the property line. It's about 12 feet with where we'd like to put it, and keeping it so it's just a straight permit.
I should have had you probably go up to the map and point that out, but that's okay.
Mr.
I think-
Chairman?
Did the board see where he was pointing there? And
Yeah.
I thought that your mom and dad discussed the possibility, kind of pointed out where it might be when
Yeah,
we were
I
there.
wasn't there, and I'm assuming they did. I kind of had it marked out.
Yeah, I think they were talking about it, and it was within setbacks. That
Yes.
would have been just a straight,
Straight
over-the-counter permit, I believe, what they were
Okay.
discussing.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I guess what I was getting, I thought you were indicating there was no building envelope for that, but
Yes,
there
for the
is.
Yeah, for the garage it would be, yep. It would fit into a
Okay.
straight permit.
I mean, the back of the house is 80 feet from the lake, which is right at about the setback,
Yep.
which is 75. Why not
And-
do the whole project? I mean, house, garage, everything.
Oh,
Get-
well, and it just, with a straight permit for the garage, I didn't see why confuse anything else.
Sure.
On
Yeah.
this part of it.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Mark.
as Clint accused me of sniffing out erosion in the past there, on the backside of that cabin, did notice where that roof line was, that there was a little bit of erosion there, and wondering if you would be in the building plans that you'd possibly put a gutter in diverting that water so it doesn't run directly towards the river there.
Yep.
And that would be part of a stormwater management plan.
Yep.
Or that is something that I would like to see.
Mr. Chairman, we discussed that when we were with them before you guys got there, so I know that was already had agreed to that or talked. I think Clinton was there when we were talking, so I don't think that was an issue.
Okay, at this point too, I should enter in for the record the fact that on the 16th, Dave, myself, Marv, and Clint were there, and Brent, you viewed the property.
I viewed the property yesterday.
Okay. Okay. Did you have something else to add, Clint? I noticed you were,
Me?
or not Clint, I mean Brent.
I did. I wanted to ask Steve, what is going to be the plan with the deck on the front side?
Depending on what we had, we talked about at the DRT meeting that there's a possibility we needed to remove that and then do a walkway to use that patio door. It's not gonna be very convenient by any means, but they're willing to do whatever they need to do with that deck to make it work, to get the addition on the back. Obviously, if it can stay where it is, great. If we gotta do, because they said that we were allowed 4 feet, or this 4x8 platform, 32 square feet, I think it was, no matter what, which becomes a 4x8 platform, which is kind of unusable, but whatever they need to do to make it work, they're fine with. Because it's much more important to have the space for the bedroom, bathroom than it is to have the deck.
Okay. Marv, you have something to add?
Yes, I'm a little bit concerned when if we're going to make them do something like that with that type of work being done near that steep side hill. You're just opening yourself up for a candidate for erosion down to that river. So I'd rather stay away from that unless some other board members have some other ideas.
Okay. Other input on, before we go to public input?
I'm good. My garage stuff got answered from where I was at, and I kind of agree with what Marvin's saying about the deck on the front.
Okay. All right. I don't think we're going to get much public input, but we are open for public input at this time. Is there any public input for or against? Any questions? One more time, is there any public input? I've asked 3 times, no input. We'll close the meeting to public input. Okay, so then off to the questions, I guess. We haven't really talked much about the property. It's a non-conforming property, 25,000 square feet with only 60 feet of lakeshore. And lake is kind of a loose term here. Is it a river or is it a lake? Amy, it is a lake. If it was a river, what would the setback to the river be?
Mr. Chair, this is kind of a unique thing because this river is dam controlled. This section of the river is considered a lake, and so it's Lake Placid. It's no different than like Little Rock Lake. So we do have them around the state of Minnesota, just to give you some insight as to how and why the DNR designates certain bodies of water within a riverine system that then all of a sudden become lake. So this is considered a general development lake, which has a 75-foot setback. The Crow Ring River, if it were a part of the Crow Ring River or that section, then and it depends on the classification of the river, but I believe the setback for the Crow Wing, and maybe Sharon, you can help me with this, I think it's 100 feet.
Shore impact zone the same for both, 50 feet?
No, it would be a larger shore impact zone. Give me just a moment. I am going to share my screen. Give me just a second.
Ooh, don't
And I'm
wreck
gonna pop
anything.
over.
Don't go,
I won't, I promise.
don't crash, don't.
Well, the meeting's not fun unless we do that at least once, right?
Yeah, we got until midnight.
Yeah.
Everybody's patient out there. Nobody's snoozing yet.
All right, I'm just gonna pull this up because I think this will be better. Are you seeing my map?
You're on Beacon. We see that. There you go. There's the map.
Great. Great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on a layer for you just to show you where it changes. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out just so you can kind of see the lay of this area. So the parcel is right here. This is where we stop with river, which is a forested river. And then as you can see, the structure setback is 150 feet and the shore impact zone is 100 feet. From this line over, we go to Lake Placid, which changes then to a general development lake with a structure setback of 75 feet, shore impact zone of 50 feet. And then we get down here, and then we transition to another river system. It has the classification of urban at that point. And then the structure setback goes to 100 feet, and the shore impact zone is 65. So we have a lot of changes in this area as far as for structure setback along this area, but just to give you an idea of kind of where this is where the parcel is, so it's sits within that Lake Placid area.
Okay. Well, thanks very much. That's what I like about these meetings.
Yes.
It's an educational time for everybody, whether we
Yeah.
want it or not. But good information. Thank you. So, let's see. What have I done? I've closed the public input, right? Is that correct, Sharon? I've closed that?
I'm not sure if you called the 3 times.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Not sure if he called it 3 times.
Oh. Yeah, I did.
Okay. And then can we also get Brad to focus again?
Oh, yep.
Thank you.
Okay, we're good to go on the questions, right? All
Mr.
right.
Chair.
First question, go ahead. Brent.
Yeah, I just had another question I wanted to ask Steve here regarding the trailer and the wings. Is that all on a crawl space? Or is there maybe you can just explain how
Yeah,
that's
it's
all
kinda
set
hard.
up?
The trailer house part of it, down the middle, if you were in there, just under the bathroom, there's about a 6.5 foot tall basement where all the mechanical is. And then towards the river and towards the road from there is all crawl space. And then there's this partial basement underneath the east wing. That'd be the back half of the east wing. And then it's just a crawl space on the river side of that east wing. And then on the little wing on the west side, there's a crawl space under the river side, but it's only about 10 inches deep. And then there's the slab and the cement stairs in the back part of that west wing to go into the basement underneath.
So there's some parts that have a basement, there's other parts that are crawl space. Are those crawl spaces cemented or dirt or?
Dirt bottom, yep.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay. Just had a question that flew out of my mind. Oh, well. Ready for the questions then? All right. First question is the request in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the Morrison County Land Use Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan? We're starting out with Clint.
Kind of same as what we kind of talked about with our last applicant here was the same type of thing, you know, I mean, if we're on the lake side, I think definitely it would not be in harmony with our purposes intent, but, you know, the lay of the land, what they're proposing to put on for an addition, I don't see, maybe with the talk of the gutters and them things like that, I just don't see where we'd have any problems when we're looking at our comprehensive plan as far as water and hurting the resource at all. I know it's not meeting setbacks, but we're going, you know, away from the river lake side towards the road, with the soil type that's there, the lay of the land, the way the slopes are, and then doing, if we'd add a condition for the stormwater plan, I do think it's in harmony with our purposes and intent of the land use ordinance and comprehensive plan.
Okay, anybody else have anything to add? Dave, Marv?
Mr. Chair, a couple things I want to add. You know, part of our comprehensive plan is to keep people in their homes as long as possible. As the applicant pointed out, is they've owned a home since 1991. So it isn't like the last one. They've had it for, 30 years. Then they need a home, they need a place that's handicap accessible. Dad had a stroke and they want to make it work. So it's in our comprehensive plan to keep them in their homes as long as possible, and they're willing to try to fit this in the best possible way in their building envelope they have in a small lot.
Brent, anything to add?
I don't, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Yeah, the house is 38 feet from the lake, within the shore impact zone. I know you guys know this. The lot is only 60 feet wide at the lake, should be 120. We try to keep things at least out of the shore impact zone. There's only 25,000 square feet of lot, should be 30,000. There is a fairly good-sized building envelope. The fact that if this were granted and a garage were added, some point down the line, we'd say, well, geez, we really want to tear down this old structure and build something attached to the garage, but all of a sudden the garage is in the wrong place and I need another variance, Whereas if you just tightened up your belt and did it right now, got rid of a structure that you've had for many years. I mean, the property's been owned for 30 years, and I'd say fairly little investment into it. I mean, you've made it do, it looks nice. Looks straight, but there's got to be issues with a shifting, I don't know, with a trailer house, mobile home inside of a couple of wings, with various footings and crawl spaces. It doesn't seem to be prudent, at the very least, to compound this nonconformity and to make it go on into perpetuity, another 30 years or whatever. Yeah, it's in the shore impact zone. That's not consistent with the purpose and intent of the ordinance, something that we tried to stay away from. It's, it's on a very steep slope, bluff-like conditions, but not long enough to be a bluff. There are some issues with that shoreline and that approach down to it that, at the very least, a shoreline review needs to be part of this if it were to be granted, which I'm thinking it shouldn't be granted. And of course, the stormwater review. But at the same time, it's a small addition. It's not asking for much, but it's being added onto something that's very non-compliant and very, in my mind, not really sustainable. I think I'm the last one to answer on that one. Anybody want to add anything to number one? Okay, number two, is the applicant proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by the land use ordinance? Dave, you can start out with that one.
I would say he is. It's not a very big expansion. How many square feet you gonna add?
504, I think is the exact number.
504. Just making it so that hallway's wide enough. It's not an additional bedroom. I understand.
No, it's just an enlargement of the
Just an
bedroom.
enlargement of the bedroom. I would say they're using it in a reasonable manner. It's not extensive. It fits the neighborhood. Thank you.
Okay. Marv, anybody else have anything to add?
I don't think it's unreasonable to ask for 500 feet and then coming on the roadside. As Clint pointed out, if he would be going towards the lake or riverside, we'd all have a problem. I'd extremely have a problem with this here. But with what you're asking for isn't asking for a whole lot, so I think it's reasonable.
Okay. Brent, anything to add?
Nothing further.
Okay. I guess I have nothing to add. Clint?
I have nothing to add at this time.
Okay. Question number 3, will the issuance of the variance maintain the essential character of the locality? Starting out with you, Marv, on that question.
I think it'll blend in quite well. There's a few trees there, and then with this steep side hill, you won't notice it from the lakeside. And with the roadside, you'll notice it a little bit, but being it's such a small amount, it'll blend in quite well.
Okay. Brent, anything to add?
I'm just looking at my notes here. Based on my viewing of it, it's consistent with other homes in the area. It's treed. It's a one-level home. It's not towering or 2.5 stories tall. It's as I have come to learn now, it's a trailer house down the center with a wing on each side. So it's certainly one level. It's not standing out. It maintains the essential character of the locality.
Okay, I'd like to state that the essential character of the neighborhood is not mobile homes with extensions on them within the shore impact zone. And if it were, we should be doing our best to change that character. I mean, it's not obvious that this is a mobile home by looking at it. That's true, but we know differently. There is no covenants in the neighborhood or in the county, even as for construction standards, but the question is the essential character of the neighborhood. Does this deter from others the values of their property because it's not quite as nice a structure? And possibly not as sound a structure. So I feel it does not maintain the essential character of the locality. Clint?
If we look at this, Dave, a little bit here, the issuance, okay, maybe overall I kind of agree with you just a little bit there, but then again, if you look at just what they're asking for on this variance, is it going to maintain the essential character? From a eye visual standpoint, you won't, once it's done, you won't even know that it's any different. I don't know if the neighbors would even know it's any different. If they left for a year and came back and seen it, they wouldn't even know that. From that standpoint, I think it's essential character. And then just going backwards just a little bit, some of your comments, Brent kind of alluded to, what was under it for foundation and things like that. And, basically it's got footings on it all the way around, okay? Mm-hmm. And, I know, Dave, you brought up a question that it's been there for 30 years and how much longer is it going to be? We got a hunting cabin up north, and that's been there for 25 years. That trailer's probably 20 years old before we ever put it there, so that puts that trailer house at 45 years old. And we have additions on almost identical to what this property is. And ours is sitting on rocks, stumps, timbers, and it's been there for 25 plus years, and that thing's never moving. We got a structure here that's on a foundation, so I just wanted to clarify, the structure part of this, I'd argue that there's no need to say that this ain't very good structured place or whatever, because who knows how long, the way that thing's designed, with the siding and roof, it's good for another 20, 30, 40, 50 years. We don't know. I mean, it's as good or better than some of the other houses and cabins that are on conforming lots. It's terrible that it got put where it did, but, so that's just my comments.
All right, thanks. Anything else to add to that, Dave?
No, I have nothing further to add.
Okay. Anybody else want to add to question number 3? Okay. Number 4, is the alleged practical difficulty due to circumstances unique to the property? We're starting out with you, Brent.
Well, unique to the property, I think, understanding that built, maybe it was just a mobile home moved in 1960, as it sounds, and the indication from Steve is that maybe that's what it was, and then some sort of crawl space put underneath, a basement, wings attached to it with foundations and footings. All of that has made it unique prior to maybe Morrison County's land use ordinances even coming into play. So the position of it is the position where it is. Nothing we can do about that. It's an existing home. It's unique in that the location of where the bedrooms are happen to be in the rear area, not towards the lakeside. They're on the back side of it, where now you're looking to add on that 500 square feet. So I think all of that is unique to this property, and maybe that's how cabins got going in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. It certainly develops a challenging problem for us as a board now to struggle with what do we do with this unique, and we have to deal with these on a case-by-case basis. So all of it's unique, very unique.
Okay, thanks. Again, we have to balance, is this personal need versus the limitations of the land itself. Ordinance in itself is not a practical difficulty. You know, the fact that this is a non-conforming structure doesn't make it a practical difficulty. It's just a non-conformity. So I guess that's all I'd have at this point. Clint, anything to add?
All I would say is we don't know, way back when this is put in, there wasn't, we can't use the ordinance as a practical difficulty, but there was no probably rules in 1960 when this is put there. And then they did the groundwork and got this put where it was. The other thing we don't know is since 1960, did the shoreline move? I don't think it moves from, so that it'd be enough that you need to be 75 feet back, but, it's 38 feet. Maybe it was 50 feet away. 12 feet in 60 years, I don't think is something before, I don't know when was that dam put in, The other thing is with the dam, well, I wouldn't say that would take away, with the dam, I'm sure that helped with the setback too. We got a steep slope there, but that changed the depth of that and how far away the high water point would be, I'd say. We don't know. Them are variables we don't know. So I'd say the practical difficulty is just that there's some unknowns on if the river changed course, if it eroded or not, and then by having something in for this long, it was way before there was any rules. So it's there. It's hard to discount somebody for something that's been there longer than I've been alive. So,
Okay. Dave, anything to add?
No, I have nothing to add.
Marv?
I agree with Brent and Clint had stated, and for the record, that hydro's been in there about 100 years now. So it's been there before 1960, and it is a little bit older than you are.
Not by much, though.
And if it wouldn't have been there, it would have been a river and the setback would have been farther. Well. Okay, anything more on question number 4? Anybody have anything to add? Off to number 5 is the need for the variance created by actions other than the landowner or prior landowners. I'm supposed to start that one, okay. Well, the owner has been using this as summer property, as just lakeshore property, recreation property, wants to change it to full-time residence. That's an action of the owner. Also, the owner acted by, just repairing and improving the structure that was there, a non-conforming structure. Now, feels like they've got so much into it that they can't abandon it, and maybe just start all over within the building envelope, which there is on the property, a building envelope. So, seems to me it's all, they've owned this a long time. It's the actions of the landowner, and the preference of the landowner, the need of the landowner. It's not, again, variances are for the land, not the landowner. Okay, on to Clint.
In that approach, I kind of agree with you, Dave, on that approach, but different approach maybe would be the need for this variance is your approach is that, yeah, their need is they want to put a bedroom on, so they did it, that's actions of the landowner. But when I look at it, a different perspective would be there wouldn't be a need to get a variance to put this addition on if it would be placed in the right position. And why was it placed where it is? That's actions of other again. So that'd be my answer.
Okay. Anything to add, Dave?
No, I don't have anything to add. I think it is a personal preference here, Steve, that there probably are other options other than, because you got so much emotional investment in the place. But that's not for me to say, so I don't have anything further to say.
Marv, anything to add?
I agree with Clint stated, and then another thing I'd point out, it is their actions, but the actions I'm going to point out were natural causes that ended up creating his dad to have a stroke. And then how do you go ahead and deal with it and move forward? Just one more item to add to that.
Mr. Chair? I had one other thing to add to this, since we're talking about the variance created by actions other than the landowners. Looking at this shape of this lot, and I don't know if Amy can go back to the actual lot shape. That will suffice. Thanks, Amy. The placement of the structure, is in that unique window where it can be placed closest to the lake, and that's probably what they did back when they did it. But the lake frontage there, if I look at this correctly, 52.99 feet. Just the shape of the lot and how it was designed at the time is somewhat of a practical difficulty, and that is due to the property, just the way it's designed. And now you've got things to consider with building onto this property. You have the septic tank and the drain field off to the other side, and a shed existing over there. It's unique to the property in that the way that property is shaped and having only 50 feet of frontage. Lake owners tend to build where they can have a view of the lake. And so that's where this was put. And it was put there because of the shape of how that was chiseled out and divided up when it was originally surveyed. So I think that's unique.
Mr. Chair, I have something else to add. As a previous employee of Minnesota Power, I know this firsthand, working at Hydro for some time. FERC, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, went ahead and mandated that the Minnesota Power purchase so much floodplain property. And they had to keep it in floodplain for X amount of years because they didn't know how that water would react with the changing of the dam. And as time went on, FERC was releasing some of these areas to let them sell lots. And that could have created part of this also.
Okay, anybody else on this question? I guess I'd like to add that they are living off-site now. It's not that they have to live here, and in fact, the applicant said that they'd probably continue to live off-site if this wasn't granted, and maybe explore their other options. So it's, you know, not like we'd be kicking them out of a home. Just thought I'd clarify that. Okay, number 6, does the alleged practical difficulty involve more than just economic considerations? We'll start out with Clint.
Yeah, just trying to utilize it a little bit better. You know, they're not adding any more. They're going to have some more livable space, but they're not adding no more bedrooms. Another thing we should probably look at here too, you know, I know we always go, this goes with the land, you know, not the applicant. But, you know, if this variance would go through by adding a better bedroom in there, hopefully it would take away a need for somebody to come back to get a variance 20 years from now, 10 years from now, to put on a 30-foot addition. I don't know if it would or it wouldn't, but just something to think about. I just think it's kind of reasonable to just square it up, make a little bit better accessible, not only for them, but for future people to have this. It's going to be there. It's not going to leave. I mean, yes, we want to clean these things up. It's not going to leave. So if we can do just something small like this to make it better for these people and maybe the future owners, and maybe alleviate, especially if a garage gets put in, after that there is no room for them to add on anymore, really. So I think it's a pretty small ask. It involves more than just economic consideration.
Okay, anything to add, Dave?
You know, I think, I can't help but say it, Steve, you know, the economic considerations is that, I don't want to talk, but we have several houses, and we just replaced an old trailer house with a manufactured home, and I'm just at 28 by 56, and I mean, it wasn't that big you know, it's not my business to tell you, but you know, I know there's a lot of emotional attachment here, but there are a lot of other options if you wanted to consider it, but that's your business. But I think otherwise, I think I would vote in the positive on this one.
Okay, anything to add, Marv?
Mr. Chair, you know, it sounds like economics definitely plays a large part of this. Not all, and as you pointed out earlier, if they were to take down what they have, move everything in the building envelope, would make this better for the county, and it would be at a much higher cost. But I think they're trying to do this in a way that is not allowing them, creating erosion or creating issues with the neighbors, getting too close one way or another. They're not asking for a whole lot, so it's not just economics, but economics does play a huge part of this.
Okay, Trent, anything to add?
I just reiterate what I said before regarding the lot size and the width of the lake shore, the lot size, the sewer, the drain field, where things are existing right now may complicate a move or that building window. So it's more than just economic considerations. There's other things here that are in play with the configuration of that lot and the placement of where things currently exist.
Okay, I have nothing to add. We done with question number 6? Okay. You ready to vote? Okay. Number 1, is the request in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the Morrison County Land Use Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan? Clint?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Marv?
Yes?
Brent?
Yes.
Myself is no. Number 2, is the applicant proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by the land use ordinance? Dave?
Yes.
Marv?
Yes?
Brent?
Yes.
Myself is no. Clint?
Yes.
Number 3, will the issuance of the variance maintain the essential character of the locality? Starting out with Marv?
Yes?
Brent?
Yes.
Myself is no. Clint?
Yes.
And Dave?
Yes.
Is the alleged practical difficulty due to circumstances unique to the property? Brent?
Yes.
Myself is no. Clint?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
And Marv?
Yes?
Okay, number 5, is the need for the variance created by actions other than the landowner or prior landowners? Myself, the answer is no. Clint?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Marv?
Yes?
And Brent?
Yes.
Number 6, does the alleged practical difficulty involve more than just economic considerations? Clint?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Marv?
Yes?
Brent?
Yes.
And myself is yes. Okay, all the questions have been answered in the affirmative. Are there conditions you'd like to add to this before we vote?
Mr. Chair, as I stated earlier, I'd like to go ahead and have them possibly agree to put gutters on the home or have a stormwater management plan in play.
Okay, so a shoreline, or a stormwater management plan,
So
a
that
review by,
Review.
and how about a shoreline review too?
I'm thinking that's not asking for too much.
Okay, and Amy, how would those conditions read?
Mr. Chair, I would put those in as one condition where it would be the property owner shall arrange for the shoreline specialist to perform a stormwater and shoreline review, and the property owner shall implement and maintain the suggestions of the shoreline specialist.
Okay,
And I would put, probably I'd put a date that needs to be completed by July or June 30th of 2022.
okay,
Sound fair.
Yeah, that's fair, yeah.
okay,
And
everybody
then,
agrees
Mr.
with
Chair,
that?
did
That
you
that's
also,
what would be included in this motion? Okay, go ahead, Amy.
did you also want gutters?
That would be part of the stormwater management plan if they would be recommended by them.
Okay.
Yeah. They're part of the plan as is, so.
Okay. All right,
I would like to put that in a motion to pass this with them conditions.
okay, is there a second?
I second that motion.
Okay, motion is made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? If no discussion, we'll proceed to vote. Aye in favor, nay against. Clint?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Marv?
Aye.
Brent?
Aye.
Myself is nay. Okay, motion carries.
Good luck.
Speak with Land Services.
Thanks, gentlemen.
A nice visit with your folks when we were there.
They really enjoyed it.
Nice people.
So I see there's somebody left in the audience. I assume it's our third applicant for the evening. Did you come forward, and the applicant is Jeff Kruschek, 12183 Hilton Road, Little Falls, Minnesota. Application for a variance to add on to a non-conforming structure located in Little Falls Township. Excuse me? Oh, yeah, yep.
Sorry.
Yeah, you better be. We accept your apology.
How many mea culpas do I need to do here?
We need a little break in the action. Okay, applicants, state your name for the record, please.
Jeff Kruschek.
Chris Gammon Kruschek.
Thank you. Amy?
Yes, Mr. Chair. All right, this is a variance request to expand a non-conforming structure located in section 30 of Little Falls Township. The ordinance reference for this request is section 301, 301.6A, and then the Mississippi Headwaters Board section F1. Here's a plat map of Little Falls Township, and the red dot is the location of the parcel. And then here's the variance request received from the applicant. And then also some site photos and drawings provided by the applicant. Here's an aerial photograph of the parcel outlined in blue. And then some oblique imagery of the parcel as well. And then here are some site photographs taken at the viewing. Again, the property is section 30 of Little Falls Township on the Mississippi River. The parcel is a non-conforming single lot, which means it's less than 330 feet wide and 5 acres. The parcel is 190 feet wide and about half an acre, a little less. The property has an approximate 7,700 square foot building envelope. And then here is the building envelope drawn on the property. According to the assessor's records, a 1,506 square foot dwelling built in 1959 exists on the property, along with a boathouse. Mississippi Headwaters Board standards went into effect in 1981. The DNR determined the closest point of the dwelling to the river is 118 feet. The required setback from the river is 150 feet. The shore impact zone is the first 100 feet from the river. The applicant purchased the property in 1995, and the property owner is proposing to remove the existing 158 square foot deck located on the south side of the home and replace with a bedroom addition with the same square footage. No net increase in number of bedrooms is proposed. The south deck is 168 feet from the river, which does meet setback. The impervious surface calculation, including the addition, is 11.65%. 25% impervious surface is allowed. At the development review team meeting, staff discussed the following with the applicant, that they're replacing the existing deck with a bedroom expansion. The deck appears to meet setback from the river, but the home does not, and the DNR will check that. The need for Mississippi Headwaters Board certification if this is approved, and no plans to replace the deck elsewhere on the property. The applicable comprehensive land use plan goals is natural resources and open spaces, goal C2, shoreland development, goal D1. And the comprehensive water plan goals and objectives is surface water goal, objective B. Land use and development goal, objectives B and D. 98 notices were sent. No comment was received prior to the public hearing. And then here are your finding of fact and decision questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. One point of clarification on the size of the lot, Amy. I went to Beacon and looked, and it does say .45 right but it's really 1.2 acres. The applicant has in the impervious surface calculation the dimensions, and I measured it on Beacon, and yes, it is 1.2 acres. So could we change that in your staff report? I think I had
Absolutely,
sent
Mr.
that to you
Chairman.
earlier in the day. Maybe you have a reason other.
Nope, just lots on my plate today. So I will make that change in the findings.
Okay, thank you. All right, other than that, applicant have anything to add?
Yes, when we applied for the variance, the instructions we had was to use kind of what the guidelines were by the county and not a personal need. And then after hearing some of the other people that came forward, so our house was built in 59 and it has a typical 59 floor plan. So we have a small bedroom, our bathroom upstairs. That's the only bath that's upstairs, and it does not have a shower. Due to some recent health issues and wanting to stay there as we get older, part of the addition is we want to put in main floor laundry, and that we also wanted to have a walk-in shower so that we could utilize that instead of, because we have no shower upstairs. So that's part of the reason why we're doing this.
Okay, thank you. Okay, questions for the applicant? Amy, I guess I'd like to, prior to Mississippi Headwaters, and if that was not in effect right now, what would the setback to the river be?
Mr. Chair, since we have Mississippi Headwaters Board, we defer to Mississippi Headwaters Board.
Yep.
Prior to that going into effect, I do not know what that setback was prior to Mississippi Headwaters Board. Sharon, do you know if there was a setback from the Mississippi River prior to that?
I
That's-
don't know, but just remember that Little Falls did do their own zoning.
Yes, you're right. Little Falls Township did handle their own zoning up until the early 2000s. So the county would not have had jurisdiction in this area. Good point. Thank you, Sharon.
Okay, today, if Mississippi Headwaters wasn't in effect, what would the setback be?
That's a fantastic question, because it depends on the classification of the river. The river classification is Mississippi Headwaters Board, so I don't know what designation the DNR would have given it.
Yeah, it could be a lake that they're living next to. Could be 75
Very
feet.
possible. Yeah, maybe.
Just saying. Yeah, I guess my observations are to a certain extent that, it seems to meet county standards for setback, possibly, for sure shore impact zone. It's basically a duplex size lot or larger. It's over 50,000 square feet. Yeah, so just those comments. Anybody else have anything to add?
Mr. Chairman, I talked with one of the county commissioners that's on the Morrison, or on the Headwaters Board, and he said that they're much more lax than we are. He's never seen them turn anything down yet. So, again, if that has any effect on it. But in looking at their lot and looking at what they plan to do here, I feel pretty positive about it, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Public input? We're ready for that? Oh, we do have a public. Where'd you come from? Were you back there all this time? Your name?
Mr. Chair, Chuck Perrins, Little Falls Township. Little Falls Township is in favor of the variance.
Wow. You were a very patient man to say 5 words.
Thank you.
You can't elaborate on that?
Well, yeah, I think I could.
Oh, no. I'll be sorry I asked.
Opportunity here. Well, I think, if you look at it historically, and thank you for Sharon for bringing that up. We were doing our planning and zoning back then in Little Falls Township. I think it was closer to about 96 when we gave it up. But, you know, a lot of these homes typically were FHA mortgaged homes back in the day, so they only had certain allowances of what you were allowed to build, actually, for that loan to be in effect, and it was not atypical for a lot of these houses, seemingly shockingly on water, that they were only allowed to have a certain size. So, I mean, to accommodate that today would be way different, I think, as well. The other piece is that, well, there's a couple pieces. Where they're putting the addition is really not going any further into the setback. I mean, even though it's already a non-conforming, it isn't aligned with the part of the house that is behind the setback. And I think there's opportunity for mitigating any other concerns, even though there isn't really with the impervious surface itself. But I think it's a good project in that respect. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Sometimes you're sorry you ask, but not this time. Okay, any other public input? Any other public input at this time? Public input, all over, all done? Okay, the meeting is closed to public input. We're ready for the questions? Okay.
Mr. Chair, did you point out what day we visited and the, might have had some wild game moving around there with the camera?
I've got pictures of some of you guys.
I didn't quite catch that. I was shuffling papers and they were making a lot of noise. What did you say, Marv?
Viewing.
Our viewing, oh, I'm sorry, yes. On November 12th, last Friday, Dave, myself, Marv, and Clint were there. Brent,
I stopped out yesterday afternoon and was greeted by the dog at the door, and nobody was home. So I stayed in the driveway, so I'll defer to the rest of the group for the walk-around perspective. But I did observe it yesterday afternoon.
all right, thank you. For the record, we have that. All right, first question is the request in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the Morrison County Land Use Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan? We'll start with Dave.
Absolutely. You know, I grew up here in this community, and I remember driving by that house or down that road, and it's changed a lot in these years, but now fits really nicely with the neighborhood. It's part of I know that up the road a little ways on the left-hand side of the road is a little different back in the day. I don't know, do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
The city dump?
Yep, I do.
Anyway, no, it fits very well. It really fits in. Very nice house. Very nice lot.
Thank you.
Okay, Marv, any?
Mr. Chair, something I want to point out, you know, it is in harmony and something that, you know, it would have met the setbacks before the Mississippi Headwater Board was in place here. So otherwise, it meets all the setbacks, and Township is in favor of it. So it's definitely in harmony.
Okay, Brent, anything to add?
I've got nothing further.
Okay. Myself, I'd just like to refer to the applicant's answers to the questions. To all the questions were very well answered, and in this case, he said we are not adding more to the property, just replacing the existing deck will not affect the impervious surface of on the property. I'd like to add that, you know, it does meet the Morrison County standards, as Marv said. And I think actually probably, you know, even though we're governed by Mississippi Headwaters, meets the intent of their standards too. Again, 5 acres, this is meant for new properties, that nothing should be added that's less than 5 acres, and trying to preserve the scenery the way it is and not make it any less scenic of a waterway. This does nothing to change that. The addition, be a good-looking addition the way it looks to me. I assume it'll be a gable roof into the edge. I mean, that complex roof lines kind of look nice. They're not monotonous. I assume it'll fit very nice with the already very nice-looking home. There's no further development within the shoreland. you know, it's 12% impervious surface, 25% is allowed. The only thing I can see on that lot that looks maybe a little problematic is, you know, the length of the slope. It's a long slope. That's a lot of water going down that slope. Question for you, where does water on the roadside of the house go? Does that go towards the river? Does it go towards the road? If you get with normal small rains, I assume it doesn't go anywhere. But with a big rain, where does the water go? And where does it come from?
Kind of strange because we have a lot of gravel and sand where we're at. When we first moved into the house, we did some landscaping around the house to keep the water going away from the foundation of the house. But there's never really any wet spots in our yard. If we get a heavy rain across Hilton Road on the other side, you get big puddles there, but not on our side of the road. So my assumption is that it's going towards the road. I know when we, had some landscaping and stuff done that they had put in some areas where the water would mitigate and it would, just go out into the yard. But we haven't had any problems at all with erosion or water standing or anything in the lot, so.
That retaining wall has been there a long time?
Yes.
Seems like it's leaning slightly, but it doesn't look like it's problematic.
And my guess is it was put in 59, so it's probably doing better than I am, but.
Okay, that answers my questions. Anybody else have anything to add? Ben?
No, I have nothing to add on this one. We'll move along.
Okay, we're good to go to the next question? Okay, is the applicant proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by the land use ordinance? Mark, start with you.
Definitely using in a reasonable manner and not increasing impervious surface, just replacing the deck with an enclosed area and something, they have a large enough lot, it'll blend in well, so it's definitely reasonable.
Okay. Anybody else? Brent?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. It's a remove and replace. Same square footage for the removal of the deck for the expansion of the structure.
Okay. Clint?
One thing I'd just like to maybe add is our impervious surface calculations 11%, but that was on 0.5 acres. So that's gonna,
That was on the full.
was it on the full?
Yeah. It was on their calculations, yeah.
Well, okay.
Yep.
Just want to clarify.
Okay.
But
good
no,
point.
but anyways, that's totally reasonable. We're not talking about a big addition here. It's just like I think Brent said, tear down and replace. Another thing that you won't even really notice that once a year from now you won't even notice that addition. People that lived there their whole life probably drive by and not notice it. So definitely reasonable. Far enough away, definitely meets setbacks from the river where this addition is. Yeah, the house don't, but that's before time again. We're looking at 1959, and it's a lot farther away than a lot of the other ones we look at. I think it's just totally reasonable.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to add? Dave, you're next.
No, I think everybody else has stated it very clearly. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's all been stated. No change in impervious surface. Bedroom numbers stay the same. Fits in with the neighborhood. Yep. Okay. Number 3, we're ready for number 3. Will the issuance of the variance maintain the essential character of the locality? Brent?
Yes, there's similar homes in the area all along, built along the riverside there as well. This is going to maintain the essential character, at least on that side of the road, maybe not on the other side of the road further down, but certainly on the riverside.
Okay, myself, yeah, it's no chain, fits well with the neighborhood, looks similar construction in the neighborhood. Okay, anybody else? Clint? I'm good. Marv?
What I'll point out also, beautiful home, beautiful lot, well-maintained, looks like you take pride in it, so it'll definitely maintain what's there.
Anybody else want to add anything to question number 3? Okay, on to number 4. Is the alleged practical difficulty due to circumstances unique to the property? I'm starting that one. The applicant said yes. When the property was built in '59, it met requirements. Existing interior of the house requires location of the structure to be on the south end where the existing bedrooms are. You know, I guess I'd like to add that, you know, again, same as question number 1. It meets the intent and purposes of Morrison County Land Use Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan. And this will go before the Mississippi Headwaters Board, so they can answer the question whether it meets their criteria or not, even though we feel here, I think I can say that we feel that it does, and that it's, you know, the intent is not to detract from the beauty of the Mississippi River and the scenery around it, and this will not do that. And it's a very mild encroachment on their setbacks even. So, anybody else, number 4? Clint, Dave, Marv, Brent. Number 5, is the need for the variance created by actions other than the landowner or prior landowners? Clint?
Yes, I do think since 1959, different setbacks and things like that have been put in place. You know, who knows how the rivers change form, you know, over the years for a foot or two here and there, because we're not talking a lot of feet, really, you know, when we're looking at to meet the setbacks. So, if you look at that part of this variance, yeah, there's other actions other than the landowner and prior landowners.
Okay, anybody else want to add to that?
Mr. Chair, just to add on with what Clint had said, obviously, we talked about Little Falls Township managing permitting and zoning up until the year 2000, so that plays into this. And as well, the Mississippi Headwaters plays into this as well.
Yeah, I'd like to add that I think the intent of Mississippi Headwaters is to prevent further encroachment, prevent further things that detract from the river, and this does none of that. So I'm thinking Mississippi Headwaters ordinance is what brought us here today, and that they'll see our side of the story. Okay, anybody else want to add to number 5? Number 6, does the alleged practical difficulty involve more than economic considerations? Starting with you, Dave.
Yes, it does. You know, the way the house was designed, you explained that, you know, that not having a bathroom upstairs and you're not adding square feet, this is just a makes sense kind of request. I think this is one of these variances that you checked all the boxes. And it just, they have to go back to that specific question and not drift around on too many of them. But it does involve more than economic considerations here. This is a need, and it makes sense. So, yes.
Anybody want to add to that? Marv?
Another item I'd like to add to it, as he pointed out, as they're aging, they would like a shower and larger bedroom upstairs, and how do they accommodate to it? And so they're considering a lot more than just economics.
Don't look that old to me.
Was that for the record? I didn't hear it, but if it was, okay. Okay, Brent, anything to add? Anybody else?
You know, just back to the property again, I think, you know, the Mississippi headwaters is more than the economic considerations. We got to deal with that. And if not for that, maybe we wouldn't be here, so.
Yeah, I have nothing to add. Okay? Done with the questions? Conditions, anything we should add? I don't know if we need any conditions. I don't know if it would look, I think we certainly could add conditions that the shoreline specialist review the shoreline and review the stormwater plan, and that might be a selling point to Mississippi Headwaters Board. I don't know. What do you think? Anybody?
I don't know, we're not really changing anything to this property, really.
Mr. Chair, as I think we all seen the pride they taken in their place, how well it's kept, how well it's maintained, I don't see a need of putting them conditions on because they've done such a fantastic job through the years.
Your feeling, do you think you need that to help make your case at Mississippi Headwaters or not?
I don't think so.
Mr. Chair?
We will, I mean, because we have the rain gutters, and so when this is on, we'll extend those out and have them go out, so I don't think it'll be a.
Rather than a condition, is there a statement you could make that would like the input of the shoreline specialist to look at your property and see if there's any thoughts they might have to stabilize the shore, the bank?
We did have Morrison County Soil and Water come out and take a look. This was a number of years ago. That was back when they were putting coconut logs in to preserve the riverbank. And we decided we didn't want fence posts and coconut logs, so we ended up rip-wrapping our shoreline. And then we had some ice damage to the boathouse. And at that time, Morrison County Soil and Water, Mississippi Headwaters, I think the Army Corps of Engineers, I mean, we've gone through those processes before. They should have records on all that, so, I mean, we've been pretty proactive. We want our shoreline to erode and to be good, but.
I think that's good to have that in the record. I'm glad that you recalled that and brought that up.
Yep.
Mr. Chair.
And you can bring that forward to Mississippi Headwaters if we approve this, Amy?
Mr. Chair, I certainly can, since it's on the record, it'll be in the findings of what the property owner has done in the past as far as for shoreline protection and improvement. The thing I was going to say too is generally you're going to put a condition if there is something you need or want to mitigate because of the granting of the variance. So if you don't feel that an essentially remove and replace type of scenario needs any mitigation or offsetting, something that offsets with a condition, then I would say it's not necessary to put a condition on, because you will need to have a nexus between what you're granting the variance for and what the condition is meant to mitigate.
Okay. Yeah, I agree, and I'm personally satisfied with the answer the landowner just had as to what they've done in the past, and certainly will be proactive in the future, so. Okay, are we ready for, where are we at? Have we answered the questions yet? Are you sure?
Yep, Mr. Chair, you just need to vote.
Well, let's think about it for a while. Okay, let's go. Is the request in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the Morrison County Land Use Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan? Dave?
Yes.
Marv?
Yes.
Brent?
Yes.
Myself is yes. Clint?
Yes.
Is number two, is the applicant proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by the Land Use Ordinance? Marv?
Yes.
Brent?
Yes.
Myself is yes. Clint?
Yes.
And Dave?
Yes.
Number three, will the issuance of the variance maintain the essential character of the locality? Brent?
Yes.
Myself is yes. Clint?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
And Marv?
Yes.
Number four is alleged practical difficulty due to circumstances unique to the property. Myself is yes. Clint?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Marv?
Yes.
And Brent?
Yes.
Number five is the need for the variance created by actions other than the landowner or prior landowners. Clint?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Marv?
Yes.
Brent?
Yes.
And myself is yes. Number 6, does the alleged practical difficulty involve more than just economic considerations? Dave?
Yes.
Marv?
Yes.
Brent?
Yes.
Myself is yes. And Clint?
Yes.
Okay, all the questions have been answered in the affirmative. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve this.
Okay,
I would second.
okay, seconded by Clint. Any discussion on this motion? No discussion, we'll proceed to vote. Roll call vote. Marv?
Yes.
Brent?
Yes.
Myself is yes. Clint?
Yes.
And Dave?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Your variance has been granted at our level, and I'm sure you'll have good luck at Mississippi Headwaters.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for being so patient, 9:30. We didn't remind people to sign in, Amy, but I think it was obvious who everybody was and what their names were, right? You don't have any questions about that, who was here and who said what?
No, I don't believe so,
Except
Mr.
that
Chair,
Perrin's character,
Sharon.
maybe. What he really said, we don't know.
I don't have any.
Say it again.
about it.
All right, next, minutes from the previous meeting. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion, we approve our November 3rd minutes.
I would like to second them.
Motion has been made and seconded. I'd like to say, Sharon, for not proofreading them, they were really pretty classy minutes, and well done. Is there, okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, old business, new business?
Mr. Chair, I do not have any, again, just as I said at the Planning Commission meeting, we do not have an agenda for the next meeting, so, but we do have a couple of items for that first December meeting already. We will, the county board, I believe, has set or will be setting their 2022 board meeting dates, and so we'll be coming out with the 2022 dates very soon. And so we will be getting you a copy of those so you can get those on your calendar. I just, there's a couple things I want to circle back on for this meeting, but it is 9:30 and Brad has been an absolute angel for sitting through this. Well, I'm going to call him one because he is mine tonight. So I don't want to keep him any longer. So I think if we have a shorter agenda in December, then there's a few things that I want to discuss. And from the sounds of some conversation prior to the meeting, you guys might have some stuff to talk about too, or that you want to discuss. So if you have something that you want me to make sure that I address, zip me an email and I'll be sure to get that on the list so we can have some good discussion.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I don't know, is there other people on here? I'd like to possibly just bring
No.
up a comment. So after,
Just know, Marv, that you still are on the record. So we are recording this and this
okay,
is part of the record.
maybe I'll chat with you on phone conversation. I had a interesting phone call from a township supervisor, so I want to pass that on.
Sounds good, Marv. I'd love to visit with you.
Okay, I guess for the record, I'd like to add one thing that I'd like us to pursue in the future in some training or in some think sessions, is we keep getting put in this predicament of people buying property that they don't know what land use ordinances are and how it pertains to their future needs or future plans. There's got to be a way, I would think, that we could better inform them when they're about to purchase a property. I don't want a lengthy discussion on that at 9:30 at night. Brad has been a peach of a guy, but you weren't here. But I'd like us to pursue that at some point.
Amen to that
Okay.
one. It's frustrating to me too.
Yep. No, agreed. Anything else right off the top of your heads that you want me to write down right now?
Top of whose head? I got lots of
Any
things
of
on top of my head.
That's scary, Dave.
I'm good. Everybody else good? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion made to adjourn.
Okay,
I'll second that one.
all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Meeting adjourned at 9:30, half an hour past what
All